Hey everyone, welcome to the He's Not Wrong podcast. And I'm your host, Chad D. Listen, I have to be very honest with all of you. Starting out from the get go, I already had this episode recorded and I completely messed up. I put a weird audio filter on myself, not knowingly, halfway through on my soundboard when I was recording the first version of this, the first take, if you will. And those vocal filters can't be reversed once you put it on. It's like embedded into the audio file. So just so you can like understand what I'm talking about, I'm going to insert a clip right now. There's a button on my soundboard that is for drums, but I don't think I have it set up right now. Let me see.
No, it's not working. So, there's not going to be a drum roll.
That episode was unusable, so we had to take the podcast on the road, and that's why I am here in Florida recording a second take of this episode. And last week's episode was very much a stream of consciousness format, but this one I think will have, more of that usual structure that I know all of you are looking forward to. And as travel is slowing down for the summer for me, I'm really, really looking forward to investing and planning to have a lot of time in the coming weeks to put into the He's Not Wrong podcast and growing it and trying to support it the best way that I can. And I hope that makes you excited as well. But you might be asking yourself, well, what can I do to help support the podcast? Well, you can start by sharing these episodes with your friends and family, leaving a review wherever you're listening to me right now, whether that's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, leaving comments. That's a big way to help. This type of interaction is absolutely invaluable in sharing the He's Not Wrong podcast. So thank you in advance for all that you are doing to help me grow He's Not Wrong. So enough of that, because we have a lot to discuss right now. And I want to begin by talking about the Jeff Bezos and Laura Sánchez wedding that occurred last week. If you haven't been made aware yet, you live under a rock. But Jeff and Laura got married last week in Venice, Italy, to the tune of $50 million. Every A-list celebrity was present, from the Kardashians to Oprah and Laura Sanchez's fellow astronauts, Katy Perry, Gayle King. It truly was a star-studded affair. That's not in question. The wedding didn't happen, though, without, environmental protests and protests against capitalism. And they were heavily critiqued for everything that they were doing, all the way to the invitation, or from the invitations that they sent, the save the date design, the fact that it was a Friday ceremony, all the way down to the carpet that they chose for the flooring of the ceremony. People have been going all in on them, saying if you're going to spend $50 million on a wedding, then those invites and save the dates and that carpet that you pick better reflect that price tag. And if you are just completely lost right now, then I need you to pause this episode and just do a quick little Google search for research purposes, and then come back here so you can have some context as to what it is that I'm talking about. But truly, I understand all critiques that people are making right now. But the biggest critique that I want to discuss are those that revolve around the environment and the guest list. So first off, we're going to talk about the environment. You have big time environmentalists that are attending the wedding, like Leonardo DiCaprio, and it just, completely discredits every bit of environmental advocacy that they have done for a number of reasons. The first is that they're flying private to Venice, Italy, and CO2 emissions and their carbon footprint is absolutely insane for everyone just to get there to attend this wedding. And the second is that the fact that they're at a destination wedding of a very historic city that is extremely sensitive to climate change, supporting the marriage of the biggest singular contributing factor to the climate crisis that we're seeing right now, Jeff Bezos and his company Amazon. And from what I can tell online, people are just absolutely fed up with it. This wedding, I think, did damage the impact that celebrities can bring to certain causes. And I think we're seeing the impact of that right now. And with this much pushback from the general public on the people who attended the wedding, I truly would like to see us start deplatforming celebrities and start giving them as much support, or to stop giving them as much support that we do. And I'm speaking financially specifically, because you know what? We hate to see Leonardo there at the wedding, but you can't stop going to see his movies. And we're complaining and we're pissed off that the Kardashians arrived in Venice, but you don't miss an episode of their show on Hulu. So I think you see where I'm going with this. We have to start recognizing right now that these people have the platforms that they have because we have given it to them. If these individuals are going against our beliefs and our morals as it seems that they are with this wedding, as the public currently is saying, then that change starts with us. And until then, the criticism is absolutely falling on deaf ears, and they will continue to win every single time until we start standing up to them. So, my second point that I want to make is that guest list that we talked about, because I absolutely refuse to believe that Jeff and Laura actually know and are that close with every single celebrity in the world. So, you may call me a traditionalist when it comes to weddings, but are the guests, there to celebrate their love, or do they view it as a hot ticket event that is at the same caliber of the Met Gala? Because intentions behind those two things are vastly different, and the spectacle of it all, for no other reason than gaining publicity and having paparazzi shots taken throughout the weekend, it just really takes away from, I think, what should be the focus of the weekend, which is love, in my opinion. And, I'm not a billionaire. I think that's obvious by now on this podcast. So I wouldn't know, but this just like reaffirms my desire for a small, intimate wedding with a fun after party with a slightly larger group of people attending the party than they did the ceremony. I want love to be at the center of my wedding, not spectacle. But again, this isn't my wedding. So I'm just simply, stating my opinion in comparison to what it is that I have seen publicly being stated with Jeff Bezos and Laura Sanchez's wedding. So, with all that being said, I want to keep it on the theme of the environment just for a quick moment, because I have seen so many individuals recently posting and resharing content about saving our lands and protecting the environment. And the posts are in direct protest to what the current administration is doing to harm national parks, protected lands, and overall popular, beautiful natural wonders in our country. And they're the same people who were sharing and have expressed pro MAGA and pro Trump thoughts throughout the entire previous election cycle. So I have a question for all of you. What do you think drill baby drill meant? Because they weren't planning on doing that in a different country. They were always intending on doing that on federally protected lands and selling those federally protected lands. I think it was like something like 300 million acres were on the chopping block to be sold. So your environmental activism is just, it's simply too late. You wanted a president who wanted to gut federal regulations and roll back environmental protections. And that's what we got. The Republican Party has made it no secret that this was their intention all along. And yet here we are. So I hope that this serves as a message that not all regulations are bad. Regulations protect the environment. They ensure that you have access to the natural wonders to explore and enjoy. And they quite literally save the land that you now suddenly care about, but we're too blind to see the political ramifications of a second Trump presidency, despite every single red flag that was raised before Election Day. And it was right in front of us all along in Project 2025. And, under that Project 2025 plan, the Environmental Protection Agency, the agency literally created to protect us from pollution and toxic chemicals, would be gutted. Key offices and programs are dismantled, and career scientists would be replaced with political loyalists, and regulatory power would be stripped away. It's not just bureaucracy that is being cut. It's our clean air, it's our safe water, it's public health. And Project 2025 wants to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the most significant climate legislation that we have ever passed. This means no more investment in clean energy, no progress towards reducing emissions, no serious action on climate change. But it doesn't stop there. The plan also pushes for expanding all gas and oil drilling on public lands, repealing the Antiquities Act, and opening up national monuments to extraction. It's a fossil fuel free for all, if you will, disguised as policy. And, when it comes to science, Project 2025 wants to limit environmental research and make it nearly impossible to regulate dangerous chemicals, raising the burden of proof so high that action becomes quite literally paralyzed. So, this isn't deregulation, it's demolition. And if implemented, it would set us back decades in the fight to protect the land that so many of you had a chance at saving months ago, but simply wouldn't listen to the facts when they were being presented. And as of this recording, the big, beautiful bill did pass the Senate and the House, and Trump signed it into law. And it's important to note that so much of the pushback with the save our lands and the environmentalists who were really pushing on them to remove the selling of public lands. And the big beautiful bill, I believe that was removed from the bill. But yes, that's a temporary victory. But we should also note that Project 2025 has made it very, very clear their intentions, that the big beautiful bill was an avenue that didn't work for them, but they will do anything and everything at all costs to sell those 3 million acres of federally protected lands so they could line their pockets and make sure that their billionaire friends are making investments that they'll be able to reap the benefits of and from years down the road. So just don't sleep on this right now, because this is too important. Quite like, it's way too important. And I know, and I have seen people celebrating that the sales aren't going through, but that's for right now. And if we've seen anything with Project 2025, if one avenue doesn't work out, they will exhaust every single avenue, legal and illegal, that they can possibly take until they get what they want. And they're going to do that with this, mark my word. So please, the fight is nowhere close to being over. Let's take a quick break. So before we get into the headlines, I want to talk for a quick minute about TikTok, as I do in most episodes, because currently my For You page is just insane. It never fails to shock me. And I know I always say that my For You page like shocks me every time. And I know that, like, I always say that, nothing really shocks me anymore, but TikTok will continue to always shock me, I think. As they say, I built my FYP brick by brick. I do get shocked when certain things come up. And for instance, for the past week, I have been stuck on Botox self-injecting TikTok. You heard that correctly. Botox self-injecting TikTok. There is an entire community dedicated to it. So it's a community of women on TikTok that buy something called Inatox. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a South Korean brand of Botox, and they buy insulin syringes and they give themselves Botox. As simple as that. They openly admit that they learned where to inject the Botox by watching videos on YouTube and TikTok. And some women have even gone as far to have tox parties in their backyard where they give each other Botox. I cannot make this up. So I did a deep dive, if you will, out of curiosity into who some of these women who are going viral are. And mind you, when I say that I built my FYP brick by brick, I do get a lot of MAGA content just due to the nature of this podcast being fairly political. And so I'm getting content coming at me from all sides, which is what I want. So I can stay in the loop and have content to talk about on He's Not Wrong. But back to the women, get this. They're mostly maha mommies. I'm serious. They're the women who are fighting for informed, truthful healthcare are the same ones bucking medical expertise and guidance on giving themselves injections of a substance that could cause serious bodily harm if not performed correctly. So as I said, I'm rarely shocked anymore, but this one is it's up there for me. In these videos, the women openly admit, as I said, that they learned from online videos, or a nurse showed them certain injection zones. When they're describing the injections, they say that they barely insert the needle. You may need to go in at an angle, or I think the spot needs the needle to go a little bit deeper. And I say this because they clearly have no idea how to properly do it, but they're lacking the nuance that is needed to acknowledge that every face is different. Muscle placements are different for every woman. Face structure has impact on where a nurse or doctor or someone who's qualified in injections might place the Botox. And I just cannot believe that these women are giving themselves Botox in the name of not being able to afford real Botox injections from qualified medical experts. So I would argue right now on the He's Not Wrong podcast that I'm not wrong that Botox is gender affirming care. But I don't think that the Maha Mommies are ready for that conversation and potential showdown just yet. So I will dedicate an entire episode to that later on. But for now, that is all I have to say about these backyard talks. God, that's a tongue twister. That's all I have to say about these backyard talks parties that currently seem to be all the rage. And so I want to end with this. If you come at me with a needle, you best not be using the words I think, because honey, you better know. This isn't a break. I just need to take a sip of my water. So hold on, a little free, quick ASMR moment for all of you listeners out there. I apologize if you did not enjoy that, but I did, so you're welcome. It's time to get into the headlines. I want to start with the Supreme Court. I want to talk about how wild it is that we even have to say this out loud. We need it. We need it to be on the record. The Constitution is constitutional. But apparently for now, that's up for debate, at least according to the Supreme Court's recent action surrounding birthright citizenship. Last week, the court handed Trump a procedural win, not because they agreed with his blatantly unconstitutional executive order to end birthright citizenship, but because they took aim at nationwide injunctions that block these kinds of policies from taking effect while challenges play out. So we need to break down what that means. So as most of you know, Trump wants to undo birthright citizenship, which is a right that has been enshrined in the 14th Amendment since 1868. That amendment guarantees citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, regardless of the immigration status of their parents. It was written after the Civil War to make sure formerly enslaved Black Americans were full citizens. The Supreme Court confirmed that interpretation back in the Wong Kim Ark case over a century ago. So let's be clear right now. This is not a gray area. It's literally settled law. But Trump's executive order tries to reinterpret that clause, specifically the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof, to mean that the U.S. can deny citizenship to kids born here if their parents are undocumented. And judges all across the country have already called this what it is: unconstitutional and legally absurd. So here's the kicker. Instead of ruling on whether Trump's order violates the Constitution, which it absolutely does, the Supreme Court focused on limiting lower courts' power to block these kinds of policies on a nationwide scale. This means more confusion, more legal limbo, and more room for a patchwork of state-by-state chaos. And then here is the hypocrisy, because you know that the Republican Party is the party of hypocrisy. Republicans have loudly claimed and complained about these nationwide injunctions when it blocks their agenda. But we can't forget that those same nationwide injunctions temporarily blocked Biden's student debt relief to their applause. So the idea that these injunctions are dangerous tools only when used against conservatives, it's laughable. Their double standard is on full display right now. Justice Sotomayor in her dissent completely nailed it. She called on lower courts to move quickly in striking down policies that are blatantly unlawful, because when the highest court in the land avoids on ruling on actual constitutionality of a constitutional amendment, it's not only cowardly, it's extremely dangerous. And at the end of the day, what we're watching is a legal system where basic facts and century-old precedent are now somehow up for debate. And if we're seriously entertaining the idea that the 14th Amendment might be too generous, then we're not just rewriting immigration policy, we are literally undermining the foundation of citizenship itself. And let's just continue on this train of thought, because if the 14th Amendment is suddenly up for reinterpretation, then everything that it protects is on the chopping block, including marriage equality. So let's not forget, Justice Clarence Thomas has already said that he wants to revisit and overturn decisions like Obergefell v. Hodges, the landmark ruling that legalized same sex marriage 10 years ago. So this isn't just about birthright citizenship, it is a direct line to rolling back rights for the LGBTQ Americans as well. The door is open, and the far right is just walking right through it right now. The Supreme Court was designed to serve as a check and balance on executive power, a safeguard, if you will, against government overreach. But instead, it's increasingly functioning as an enabler of Trump's authoritarianism, ambitions, and the broader goals of Project 2025. By handing down rulings that limit judicial oversight, dodge clear constitutional questions, and sidestep accountability, the court is clearing a legal path for Trump to consolidate power, dismantle democratic norms, and rewrite the rule of law to serve his far right agenda. And so, with that, I want to move on to the next headline. And yes, we are revisiting this because it is important, and it's the so called Big Beautiful Bill. And may the Lord have mercy on this country for what is upon us since Trump has signed this bill into law, because this bill strips healthcare from 250,000 Alabamians. That's 250,000 people in just one state. And I believe it's closer to 19 million people nationally. And here's the thing, when they lose that coverage, when these people lose coverage, they don't stop getting sick. They still show up to hospitals. The cost doesn't just disappear. It gets passed on to the rest of us through higher premiums, increased ER wait times, and the ballooning medical debt. All of this suffering for what? So billionaires can pocket another tax break. So the ultra wealthy can add another $400,000 to their bank accounts, while folks making under $50,000 a year get hit with a higher tax rate and fewer social safety nets. And so let's be clear, as we like to be on this podcast, we like to be clear all the time. This bill is not a response to public demand. The American people did not ask for this. In fact, polling leading up to the 2024 election showed that most voters cared about the economy, about healthcare costs, and democracy itself, not immigration raids, not cuts to Medicaid, and certainly not more corporate tax breaks. But what do we get? A multi-trillion-dollar Republican wish list that guts Medicaid or makes permanent the Trump tax cuts and expands corporate loopholes and funnels billions into ICE detention centers, all while branding itself as fiscally responsible. The Big Beautiful Bill is not about fiscal responsibility, public order, or safety. It's about donor control and political dominance. And this is literally what minority rule looks like. It's a government that is more responsive to lobbyists and private prison companies and billionaires than it is to everyday people struggling to afford groceries and insulin. The patriotism, and I'm doing air quotes right now, the patriotism from MAGA is solely performative because it is actually cruelty at this point. And I, again, want to be crystal clear. The bill is deeply unpopular because polls show that the Americans do not support the Big Beautiful Bill. They found that only 27% of Americans are in favor of the Big Beautiful Bill. That's nearly 2/3 of all Americans opposing the bill once they learn about the deep cuts to Medicaid. So I don't care what the news or what people say the news is making it seem like. This is not a divided nation agreeing to disagree on this issue. This is a government ramming through legislation that the vast majority of Americans just flat out reject. And yet, despite how unpopular the bill is, it still passed the Senate. And it did go back and pass the House. But I want to talk about the Senate specifically right now because it passed the Senate because Senator Lisa Murkowski played the role that she loves to play. The holdout, the undecided, the maybe, the center of attention. Lisa Murkowski is always the last one in the room, the final question mark, the supposed voice of moderation who drags things out until she is able to ask her the only question that she cares about, which is what's in it for me? And at this point, I'm convinced it's not about ethics or policy. It's about ego. This is someone who thrives in chaos because chaos is what gives her Power. When there's tension, when the nation's attention is narrowed to a single Senate vote, she is right there in the middle, just soaking it right on up. And I've seen it firsthand because back when I worked in the consulting world, I watched tens of millions of dollars flow into advocacy campaigns targeting just her. Entire digital strategies executed, grassroots pushes, ad buys, all designed to influence Lisa Murkowski's singular Senate vote. And I honestly think that she is well aware of this because I think that she feeds on it because she's built an entire brand out of being the swing vote. And in doing so, she's mastered the art of maximizing her Senate leverage, regardless of what's at stake for the people who are actually impacted by her decision making across the country. Because for Lisa Murkowski, it's not about leadership, it's about spotlight. And as long as she keeps the chaos swirling, she gets to stay right at the center of all of it. We're going to take another break. All right, and we are back from our break, and we have reached the end of the episode, and this is my favorite part of the episode. As all of you know, it's when I listen to the audio messages that you send me about what you're not wrong about. And this week, I have an audio message from Connor from here or up there, since I'm in Florida right now. Connor in Birmingham, Alabama has sent us an audio message about what he's not wrong about, so let's give it a listen.
Hey, Chad D. Thanks for letting me do a voice note for He's Not Wrong. And this is what I'm not wrong about. I think we have lost the plot on wedding registries. Tell me why I am accepting 2 wedding invitations for this August and this September, and you want to put a $900 espresso machine on your registry, on the same registry that you're going to have $6 wooden spoons on. I don't think you should be putting that much stuff on there. Also, all these people putting like 15 plates. I need bowls. I need silverware. What have you been doing beforehand? Were you eating on the floor like a dog out of a dog bowl? It makes no sense to me. I don't need to buy you wooden spoons. You can do that yourself, or you should have those already yourself. I will contribute to a vacation fund or get you a gift card to Amazon like a normal person. I don't need to buy you a $900 espresso machine or wooden spoons. There needs to be something in the middle, or you need to tell me what to contribute to. I'm not wrong about that.
Okay, so first off, Connor, I fully agree with you. You are not wrong, as I know you're well aware of that because you're very passionate about what you just said. But I agree in the sense that like your wedding is not like an opportunity for me to redesign your house. So I know that before people get married, they look at all the wedding magazines and they're following their Instagram accounts and their TikTok accounts, and there's new fads and new trends. And so the wedding is being treated or the wedding registry is being treated as an opportunity to make their living quarters as close to what they view what perfection is, I guess you would say. So like your wedding is not an opportunity for me to like redesign or rebrand your house or your image. I think that is absolutely absurd. I am not buying you nicer things than what I'm able to buy myself. And then the other caveat to this is most weddings you have to travel for. You're getting a hotel, you're taking PTO, you are spending money on gas to get to and from the location that might be several hours away from where you're currently living. And so you're going to weddings nowadays, it's often an investment. You might have to rent a tux, you might have to buy a new suit, new tie, whatever it is. And so I will be damned if I am buying from Tiffany's on that wedding registry. Like something should be kept to yourself. And I think the really expensive stores like a Tiffany should be left off of a wedding registry. Let's recognize that people are, spending a lot of their time and their money making it to your wedding. So let's be respectful of that. If I had the money to buy you something, say from Tiffany's, then I'm going to personally reach out to you and make sure it's okay, that that's a good wedding gift, that it's something that you want. Because if I'm making that investment for you, I want to make sure that it is what you want, not what I think you want. So wedding registries, Connor, as you said, they're getting way out of hand. And I'm glad you said it in your audio message, because when I was giving it a first listen before I got to the end, I was like, yeah, no, I'm giving some money to their vacation fund. They deserve a good honeymoon. They deserve a good vacation. I'll put some money to that. But you said it best. I appreciate you for sending in the audio message. And if you are listening to this and you have a wedding coming up, just still invite me. Don't knowing that I'm not going to buy you Tiffany's silver is still, it's not a reason to disinvite me from your wedding. So please don't take what I'm saying as a reason as to not let me be an attendee. I swear to God, I'm a fun person to attend weddings with and to send invites to. Okay, I'm done. I'm rambling at this point. That's it for this episode. If you want to be featured on the He's Not Wrong podcast, you can send me an audio message to my Instagram account at He's Not Wrong. Is it He's Not Wrong podcast? I can literally, I can never remember. Yeah, it's at He's Not Wrong podcast. So if you want to send me a voice memo, you can send it to the He's Not Wrong podcast account at He's Not Wrong podcast. That's a tongue twister also. We're having trouble speaking today. I apologize. Send me an audio message to that podcast Instagram account, or you can call 205-538-3202. That's 205-538-3202. And leave me a voicemail, and I'll feature you on one of my future episodes of He's Not Wrong. And with that, I appreciate you if you have listened all the way to the end of this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.